But again, like you said, it has everything to do with the weather.
It has a lot to do with the weather. It has a lot to do with a lot of building that's going on around here.
Mm-hmm.
Things are changing all the time. Water tables,
Right.
everything. So things can change. Also, different home improvements on a home. If you go and put new windows in, new furnaces, a new roof, you're changing the dynamics of the structure. These things can start to add up. If you're making a house that's already built tighter, that can also make some differences. Finishing a basement, changing the way the HVAC runs, a lot of different things can happen. Anytime you do home improvements that are major renovations or additions, it's always recommended to do environmental checks after you do that, because you're changing the structure.
So a mitigation system would really answer the question of saying, no, there's really not an issue here because we're absolutely mitigating it.
A radon system should represent a problem solved. When you see it, it's a done deal. And you can, unlike other home improvements, nobody's coming with levels and plumb bobs to make sure the deck is perfect. You're actually doing a test afterward to prove your work. So it's a done deal. That being said, a radon system, which is a soil recovery system, basically we're taking soil gases and dumping out. I do the same things for vapor intrusion, where there's been huge brownfield chemical spills. Same exact system, you just have to change the fan out because it may need to be explosion proof, depending on what the contaminants in the soils are, or the groundwater table. Or down here, what we end up doing a lot is we're going and doing moisture abatement, and we can actually pull a lot of soil moisture out before it turns into humidity inside the structure. So it's called an active dampness control system, ADC. A radon system, we're going to core into the floor, make a nice neat hole just for demonstrative purposes. Let's say we did it somewhere in this area. We're gonna come off of the wall because there's gonna be a footer here. Let's say the footer is about 10 inches off the wall. So let's say we make a 4 or 5 inch hole right here. We're going to remove the aggregate underneath it. We're going to pipe it out, bring the pipe, mechanically fasten it to the wall, insert it in there, seal around the pipe. Fan's gonna go on the outside. So it's an active system, means it's actively removing whatever's under the soil that's in a gas or vapor state 24 hours a day. Pipe's gonna run up, which is the exhaust stack, and vent above the roof. We're gonna have it in the state of Pennsylvania, which is the rules that we follow, has a 10-foot, 2-foot rule. So any opening within 10 feet of that exhaust point, our exhaust point needs to be 2 feet higher than. That ensures that there's something called re-entrainment doesn't happen. We don't want it to re-enter.
Like a chimney, yeah.
That's it. When we do it that way, we have a quiet, energy efficient, and effective system. If I do my job right, you forget it's here.
Does it monitor the number constantly?
Well, it's going to monitor the pressure. So on the pipe about eye level, you're going to see a tube that's attached to it and drilled into it. That's called the manometer, or the U-tube. Has red or blue liquid, and that's going to show you the pressure at which it's running at. That's your visual indicator that the system's on. So you shouldn't have to run outside and listen to the fan or touch it. That means it's always going to be visually telling you it's running.
But it doesn't tell you the radon level, though.
You're going to have to independently test that. EPA recommends at least every 2 years that you retest it. Things can change. Like I said, a lot of building, or anybody's blasting, or a huge highway comes through, different things like that can change the way that the soil gases are escaping the soil. As well as you go and put a new kitchen in and get a Viking range with a huge vent hood that has 1,000 CFM on it, you're going to create more pressure in the house. So things can change.
What's interesting about that is like I was saying, when we bought it 3.5 years ago, we did not have a concerning level.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was, but I know it didn't require us to do anything.
Right.
So by like putting the system in tells me, no matter what, you're at least actively ventilating the gases
all the time.
Because
Now,
who gets radon?
I don't know. I haven't had my test.
More and more people are doing it because more people are from New Jersey and Pennsylvania moving down here.
Of it up there, right?
And it's a thing up there.
Problem up there.
You know, it's funny. They say they don't see it in Sussex County. I know agents that they'll tell their clients not to get it tested.
And
I'm
that
like, no,
legally is a problem.
Yeah,
you can't tell somebody not to do something.
I've seen it in Kent.
It's
all
all
it's
over.
not just in Newcastle.
There's not a place in the world that's never radon.
Right,
Yeah.
it's naturally occurring.
Yeah. They say that in Philadelphia all the time, and in New York City. I've mitigated. I used to mitigate for a large company. and I've mitigated personally from Boston to Atlanta. Down in Florida, I had to fly down there and do some large commercial stuff, and out to Indianapolis. That's, I was the fixer for a larger national company that did this, and that's the territories that I would cover, and open up new territories for them. It's everywhere. It's natural.
Now, if you just put a hole here, how does that suck all the radon out from
All right.
the other areas?
This is a uniform pour. So they came in and poured one slab. Unless there's some type of footing under here for a strange load bearing, that means that you should be able to, like a central vac, you should be able to create one point and create negative pressure, and it pulls all the way around. In this sump pump, they most likely have a perimeter drain or drain tile. It should be perforated PVC that makes a loop all the way around at the footing, at the foundation wall, to alleviate water pressure. And so it takes everything and dumps it into one centralized location so the pump can pump it out.
Okay.
That also will be picked up for the negative pressure.
Gotcha.
So we do diagnostic tests during real time as well to prove what we're doing. So we could do a pressure test, meaning that we can either make 1-inch holes, put the vacuum on it, should be able to go over with a lighter or a smoke pen, and it's a qualitative diagnostic. So you're not doing any measured numbers. Now I do have manometers that I could take a value and say I've created 1 1/4 inch of negative pressure over here. Usually you could do it visually confirming it, create a vacuum point here and a test one on that other room from the farthest point or in the center, but we don't want to pull any carpet here. If it was unfinished, you go in the center and do one too. You can prove that you have what's called communication.
Okay.
From one point to another, you're creating vacuum, and that should be the model for what you're going to be doing with a larger fan and 3 or 4 inch PVC pipe. So if you can do it with a little hole, that's going to tell you. Now, because it was tested 3 or 4 years ago and it came up okay, unfortunately, if it comes up at 3.9, they're going to call it okay.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
and
true.
4.0
It's not okay.
is a problem. So there's some issues with that, and depending on the time of year,
and the humidity, does that
and
affect
also
it?
who tested. And some people open up doors trying to do things, which again is a bad idea for a small investment in the home. To risk an entire sale over, playing around with stuff is silly. I don't understand that.
Well, it's interesting because I have an unfinished space where I live, and they're actually building a very large condominium complex behind. Literally, it was a Superfund site, and they've excavated 40, 50 feet in the ground and now up. And I'm thinking to myself, well, my radon was good then, but I've never proactively tested it. So what I was
it's a
thinking,
Superfund site, you should really look into what the Superfund site is, because
it was a dump. It was a farm dump. It wasn't any batteries or anything like that. So
farm dumps took everything.
is that right?
Everything.
Yeah. This is a condominium-owned townhouse community, but I remember thinking, what you're entering in my mind is, like you said, 3.5 years ago it was fine. But I don't think anyone calls up. I mean, I've talked to people, and I always say
Denrec should.
They really
put
should be telling
something
people
out.
to do these tests proactively.
If you create a 40-foot hole in the ground, you're now changing a lot of
everything
dynamics.
around it. And by the way,
A
the
lot.
road flies, we're not even 100 yards from this place.
Yeah. Again,
Interesting.
those are the things that really, really start changing.
But
stuff.
a system like
Pipelines
this,
coming through.
I'm not saying it guarantees it, but it at least takes it into consideration that it's ventilating out the gas pockets or whatever.
Whatever's in a vapor or gaseous state is gone.
Okay.
All
I
of
like
it.
that.
I've done them. We've went into Superfund sites where they built over them, and we've had to come through. I've worked with larger environmental firms where they jacked up the floors, pulled them out because concrete will hold chemicals, lay vapor barriers down, do all the sealing, make a grid with all the piping, put a fan in, and then pour it all out, and then they come in and pour the concrete over it. It depends on how far you want to go. We've done them for huge footprints all the way down to coming in and putting air ventilation systems in to work in tandem with those soil vapor recovery systems because it was bad chemicals.
And you were saying up in Pennsylvania, they're almost coding in passive systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Pennsylvania, there are counties where you build in a known area, it has to be put in.
That needs to be down here. In my
Yeah,
opinion.
which is nothing
Right.
to a builder to put $40 in piping
Yeah.
and get it all prepped and ready to go, so that when you go to transition that home and that
Sure.
deed over, because the builder's still the owner, so he can do what he wants to it
Right.
until it goes to someone else or in the sale. When that happens, it's easy to do a test. If it comes up, you just add the fan and go around and do the ceiling. So you're minimizing costs that
Sure.
way. But the other thing is a passive system, if it's put in correctly, you should, rule of thumb, get a 40% reduction just by
Yeah.
having the passive in, because of
So
the
had that been done-
thermodynamics.
Had that been in this house would have been around like an average of like
Might be a 1.
or one,
Yeah.
one
Who knows?
something. Yeah.
Who knows?
That's
I mean-
a nice peace of mind because I mean I hate to bring my own personal experience into this, but having a basement
Yeah.
and having had it tested then, but like hearing what you're saying, and we have done some changes to the house as well, so that's interesting.
Well, the other thing too is when you put these systems in, if you size the fan correctly, and knowing what purpose you want to do and what you're trying to do with it, you can again reduce actively reduce dampness.
Humidity and stuff. Wow.
It costs a lot less to run one of these units
One of those.
than one of these. So
Yeah,
there's
that's what I was wondering. The
Yeah.
electrical.
yeah, so you can pull moisture out and dry the slab out. If you can dry the slab out, if there's water touching the slab, it affects your home's heating and cooling costs, whole efficiency, everything. So a lot of these radon systems are being renamed for different applications. It's the same thing over and over again. Different fan, different size piping that you want to design for, but a lot of different applications. Because if you dry it out and get rid of the humidity, the moisture before it turns into humidity, things start to smell better.
Sure.
Your
So it'll
humidity
help
level
like
goes
with the
down.
mold issue, like a potential.
It can. Now it won't fix mold, but it's one of those things that can help
Keep it drier.
prevent
Yeah.
and help. Mold is what I
everywhere.
do, and that is environmental control. You have to control the humidity and temperatures.
Yeah.
If you can do that, it's very hard to have a mold problem. It's like
So the
pulling an
system
element
will
out.
control the humidity too.
It will help control the humidity as well,
Okay.
because it doesn't turn into humidity until it enters the conditioned space.
Right.
If it's under the slab or outside that foundation wall, that's moisture intrusion and moisture problems.
I did read that a lot of
Wow.
people are finding, especially in more humid areas, higher water table areas, as a peace of mind. Because what he's in, I kind of understand the science now. They say it, he's almost pulling all of the air through,
Yeah.
and just having a fan on in the foundation.
Underneath the slab. So it won't
Yeah.
affect your home's heating and cooling costs,
Right.
because it's not the conditioned space that we're trying to work with. And then there's other things that we need to do looking at it. We want to seal holes in floors. Like over here, I'd probably take a piece of reinforced vapor barrier and
What is
cover
that
this
hole
off.
for?
This is for a plumbing rough out.
If they want to put
Oh.
it back.
Yeah,
Oh.
which is nice because
Oh.
not a lot of basements have that.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
rough one for a future bathroom. if
Yep.
you
That's
wanted to.
awesome.
Yep, so you have this, big cracks in the floor you want to seal. We don't want to pull any air from inside the space.
Sweet.
We want to make it super efficient. You could do this with a small wattage fan and really have a big impact. Is there any other questions?
No, so basically this is more like a home improvement. It's
It is.
not going to be like.
No. I mean, you have to keep aesthetics in mind. I've seen
Yeah.
people do great things and it's uglier than sin. So you gotta
Yeah,
make
but
sure
I always
that
just
it
thought
looks
if,
well.
there was a property up in Camden, Wyoming that had a radon system, and it seemed like it didn't sell very quickly, and I was wondering if that was why. But
I gotta think if you have a basement and you do a radon test, then it should pass.
yeah,
If you have a radon system and it's done correctly, that it should be a non-issue.
yeah, but I think it might have freaked people out that there was radon in that basement, but
Yeah.
there really isn't with the system. So
No, and that's the
I
thing.
think people just don't understand
You're
it, and
absolutely
I guess
right.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
And just all this is making me feel more comfortable.
Well, you have to educate people.
Making me want to go
Yeah.
to the radon system.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
you really have to
'cause-
educate people, and it's really simple. It would be the same. It's no different than walking into a house and seeing a dehumidifier go, oh, there's humidity problems
Yeah.
here. That's silly.
There's maybe
That's silly.
You're
Yeah.
saying I'm dealing with I'm addressing the issue.
You've got to sell a radon system as I sell peace of mind. It comes with some pipe and a fan.
And is there a warranty on it?
Yeah, so it's a 3-year warranty. on the system itself, it's plastic and pipe. If you don't bang into it, it's gonna last forever. 5-year warranty on the fan, that's from the manufacturer. So they cover that. I think it's 60,000 hours, they say. So it's 5 years. That's how they work it out. And very low maintenance with it. You'll periodically walk down here. You'll look up. Everything's good, fine. If you ever come down and you would see that on the manometer or YouTube that both sides are in a state of equilibrium, that means the fan's not running for some reason. Check a breaker. There's going to be a service disconnect switch again for demonstration. Let's say it's here within 3 feet of the system. It's going to be clearly marked. Every part of this system is labeled. That's law. It has to be. So what you're going to do is look at it and go, up, everything is fine, or no, something happened there. Finally, it would be the fan, which again, 5 years on that.
So how long does it take to install this?
3-4 hours.
Oh, okay.
And it starts working immediately. I mean, you should be able to, you can technically test 24 hours after the system has been fully running.
Okay.
I always say 3 to 4 days, just because you want to make sure everything is just calmed down. But I've done radon systems where it was 120, and we tested 24 hours later, and it came in at 1.
So do you do a retest after you install
I
it?
supply a test. I don't touch that test because that's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
I'll hand it to
You
whomever.
can arrange for
Yeah.
Prospect to come out and retest it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna step out and sneeze.
Oh, I actually want to go. I'm gonna head up there too. Real quick.